This e-bike needs a lot of work to get it back to the condition it deserves. It's been pretty neglected and really needs a complete overhaul. There's bits scuffed, missing, there's bits falling out of it.
There you go.
The forks are pretty trash, it's missing a ton of parts, loads of bolts are missing, there's half a brake lever, and even the battery is held in by electrical tape. The wheels are bent, the tyres are shredded, the headset routing is all over the place, and every pivot seems to creak. In this video, I'm going to completely strip this bike naked and fix it up.
It's an ex-press bike, so it's been around loads of different UK publications. Like the battery is held in by a piece of tape. I don't have the key, I have no idea where the key went. I'm going to need to work out how I can get this out and even replace this lock mechanism here. All of these pivot bearings, I can hear a bit of grinding when I'm pumping down on the shock, so I'm going to replace all the pivot bearings as well.
And it looks like the whole drivetrain is going to be replaced too. And there's some questionable squeaking on this suspension.
Now this video is a fundraiser for World Bicycle Relief. I'm going to completely overhaul this bike, and at the end I'm going to sell it in an eBay auction, and 100% of the proceeds of that are going to go to World Bicycle Relief. And also this video is a fundraiser, so if you've ever watched any of my videos over the past few years and you've got an enjoyment or education, or in any way you wanted to give back to bicycling across the world, then this is an opportunity, because every single donation will be sent through to World Bicycle Relief.
So thanks to OneUp, Shimano, Bosch, Hunt Wheels, RockShox, Peaty's and Focus Bikes for making this build happen.
So the first thing I think I'm going to do is pop it in the stand and just dismantle it, take all the bits off, just starting from a frame and building it back up and replacing every single part that I think needs to be refreshed. All the parts that I take off I'll put in a parts bin and they'll be freshly serviced for future projects. First thing I've noticed is the dropper post doesn't even work. Chain doesn't even look like it's been lubed ever, it's still rusty. So let's take it to bits. I'm not sure if this is just completely taped in and that battery is going to fall out like a missile. Let's see what actually happens. Yeah, that's not held in there very well, is it? So I'm going to need to work out how to get the battery out because I don't have the key, so I'm going to have to suss that out. I'll probably have to order a completely new locking mechanism and key and try and find out why that battery is not being held in correctly. It's the first problem that I need to try and solve, how to remove the battery when I don't have a key.
Actually, it turns out I did have a key, just an Allen key. It was 2 bolts under the down tube and it allowed the battery to come out.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. I'm glad that's removed. I was worried about how I'd actually take that out. The next step is to, there you go, remove the lock mechanism. And now I'm going to have to buy a replacement lock mechanism. All the parts are falling out. Or find a key. Now there should be a code on here or something. Okay, next problem to solve. Find a key or find a replacement lock mech.
It didn't take long to find the replacement. A quick Google for Bosch key brought up this result on Amazon. So I put in an order and hope it will fit.
Oh, you can feel it through the bars. You can feel all the bars vibrating. That is horrible. That's disgusting.
Once I'd sussed out what needs to be replaced or repaired, which was pretty much everything, I started dismantling the entire bike to strip it down to a bare frame.
Shock removed, quite a kind of basic shock really. Yeah, pretty lightweight for the type of bike, so by popping in this other shock should be a bit more burly. I'm just going to take these bearings out, these old bearings that are really worn, and I normally just get a blunt instrument like a hex key and just lightly you can see loads of rust inside this bearing here, and I've noticed that they're using plastic bearing cups, and I've seen this quite a lot on e-bikes and I really don't like it because they're quite weak. And what's happened is this plastic part has actually split. Hopefully you can see that just on there. So this is the fork kind of compressing onto here enough that it's meant that that plastic bearing cup has split. And I've actually had this quite a few times on e-bikes. This is the 3rd plastic bearing cup that's split. I don't think these are brilliant designs, having plastic bearing cups on e-bikes. They're taking a huge amount of force through there. You imagine when you're sending it down on a 24, 25 kilo e-bike, you're putting a huge amount of force into this plastic bearing cup. So I've ordered some replacement metal bearing cups. So same size. These are actually by Nuke Proof, but they're metal bearing cups. So they're going to be able to withstand a lot more of a beating, and it just looks much burlier. I'm going to replace these crank arms with some shorter crank arms. I'm only going down by, I think these are 170, maybe 165, and I'm going to go down to a 160 mil. Just gives you that extra little bit of clearance. And I don't find there any advantage to longer crank arms on e-bikes. So these kind of warm ones are going to be replaced by some 160 mil crank arms. I don't normally like using hammers on bikes, but sometimes things just need a little gentle nudge. Like this crank arm is a bit stubborn, it doesn't want to come off, so gotta be really careful hammering here because the shaft, the motor shaft, yeah, they're just, I would say, one of the more delicate things on a bike. They're not super prone to getting damaged, but yeah, I'm giving it sideways force when I'm hammering it in, but it's just gentle kind of tap just to loosen up those splines in there. Nice. It's super rusty, it's all corroded, so this mech's going to come off and we'll fit a new ferrule on there for that cable. You can tell why the shifting wasn't that great. That was actually hanging out like that, so the cable hasn't had the best kind of entry and exit point in there. It's been grinding a little bit. So this lock ring holds on the chain ring. I've actually made a bit of a boo-boo here. I made a bit of an error because I remember now these are opposite threads. So to loosen it, you do it clockwise. So when I'm doing it without any kind of pressure on it, it's just going to freely rotate because that's how you would pedal. I don't like doing this. This is a bit of a bodge, but I'm going to put one of these plastic coated spanners through here and jam it in here at the bottom of the swing arm just to give me enough of a purchase on here to kind of lock it in place. I don't like doing it. I wouldn't do it that often. I'd usually loosen this up when it's on the floor and the chain has tension on it, but I forgot. So hopefully I can get enough. There we go. And that is not going to damage that swing arm because this is a plastic coated spanner on there, so it just kind of locked it in place and it gave me enough leverage on here to be able to loosen this. This bearing is not even turning at all. This is totally done, this bearing. Anytime this rear pivot was moving, which is basically every ride, this bearing here on this side and the other side, they're not moving at all. They're totally seized.
All these bearings are now scrap metal.
Looking shiny. Got the bearing press tool. 2 new bearings pressed in, and they actually turn.
Installing new pivot bearings will free up the suspension a lot.
Oh, that's so much nicer.
And allow it to run through that rear travel as smooth as butter.
Has such a nice action now, super smooth. These were the main culprits. These were like absolutely terrible. They were totally shot. The bearings weren't moving at all. So this was the old shock on the bike. It's a Fox Float DPS. It's a pretty basic single can shock with no piggyback reservoir. Now I tried to fit a RockShox coil, just wasn't having any of it. It's too much. The coil actually fouls some of the linkage around here. So I've got the 2023 RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate. So the eye to eye are exactly the same and the stroke length is the same, so it'll still provide 150 mil of rear wheel travel, but the body's bigger, it's got a much bigger kind of can and it's got a piggyback reservoir on there. I have noticed that Focus mount them upside down, so I'm just going to kind of do a bit of a dry run and I haven't moved all the hardware over yet. I just want to make sure it actually fits. What I'm worried about is this coming into contact with the down tube, which would be a disaster. If that doesn't fit, we'll have to kind of go back to the drawing board. And it fits like that with no suspension travel, no movement, but I'm going to let all the air out and fully compress it to find out if when the rear swing arm's moving up, if this does come into contact down here. There we are now full stroke. And I can actually fit my finger under there. Yes, you can see there's clearance there, It's the same size, like I said, the same stroke, but the shock body and air can and piggyback are much beefier. So we're going to get a better performing rear shock on here. Latest generation Charger 3 2023 RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate.
So that replacement lock barrel that I ordered turned up. Now is to try and figure out if it all fits.
So I'm going to have to try and work out how this all went together, because it just fell on the floor when I hacked it out. So I've got a few pieces here. Yes, this is going to work. That's much better. That's it. So when I pop the key in, this is what's going to hold that battery in. Fingers crossed. Let's get this in. Here we go. Let's see if this worked. Yes! I love it when things work. Releases the latch, then you just pop your finger on here and pull it out. It's the simplest things, but that's so much nicer. Now let's get on with doing the fun stuff, putting the rest of the bike together. OneUp have been really kind to supply quite a few parts for this. The bike's got, I think it's a 170mm dropper post, but because it's an XL bike, it can definitely fit in something much longer. And I'm going to pop in this OneUp 210mm dropper. I've used these on loads of bikes. They're a great bang for buck dropper post, nice smooth action, and actually amazingly well priced. I've never used a brush so much as this. These are OneUp carbon handlebars, and OneUp have engineered them to be quite compliant. What I mean by that is some handlebars can feel really stiff and quite harsh, but what OneUp have done is they've made them have a little bit of flex into them, so you actually get less fatigue. Compared with this RockShox Lyric with buttercups, I think this is going to be a really nice plush feeling out the front. Pretty straightforward to remove, but just time consuming. There we go. I'm going to give this all a clean up. I've used Shimano XT quite a bit on my own personal bikes. There's one part that I notice fails quite quickly. So we've got this part in here, and I found that depending on the angle, this cable can actually grind down this inner cable housing part in there. And when it does that, it actually makes the cable actuation quite difficult to press, and you can feel a little grinding noise. I kind of thought, why is this happening? And there was a bike, my Trek Rail, that I was riding, and the shifting got really difficult, and it wouldn't release quite as quickly as it did when I got it new. So the gears to go up and down when you kind of shift through just felt a bit rough. And then I found that Shimano XTR actually comes with a slightly different piece. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's this tiny, tiny little piece here. It's called a XTR tongue. And what that does is that actually goes in this cable housing just here. This 99p part will make your Shimano mech last a lot longer. It'll prevent it grinding. And hopefully Shimano will include that part on all their rear mechs, because it definitely will make a difference. We've got XT, rear mech, XT shifter, new OneUp bars, XT brakes, freshies. Everything is fresh. New bearings, pivot bearings, RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate, Lyric Charger 3, new stem, new in-cable routing, new headset bearings, new headset cups, 210mm OneUp dropper post, and the cable actuation is lovely. Like before, it was really harsh and gritty. This is super smooth.
I'm adding some Peaty's tubeless valves to these Hunt carbon wheels. What's really cool about the bike is it can run full 29er or mullet via a flip chip. So just some final pieces to install on the drivetrain and a few final touches and the bike is almost ready.
Yes, there we go, it's a much nicer fit. It's almost perfect there.
Finally, after a complete overhaul, here is the Focus Jam RR edition. Better than new, this bike is ready to rip.
I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I think it actually looks and probably will perform better than a brand new bike because it's hand built with love. We've got some new parts on here. We've upped the travel from 150 to 160 with a Lyric. Got a piggyback shock from RockShox, got shorter crank arms, bigger dropper post, 210mm dropper, XT drivetrain, OneUp carbon bars, 800mm, brand new XT brakes, XT shift in. I'm quite curious to find out how much it weighs. If this is like 23, 24 kilos, I'll be really happy. It's less. It's just over 22 kilos. You need to spend a lot of money these days to get a bike that's this kind of weight. New bearings, new headset cups, new pivot bearings, new derailleur, and Bosch are supplying a brand new 625 watt-hour battery that the bike will go with as well. Now the batteries normally last for about 1,000 charge cycles, but I want this bike to go in the best condition it possibly can, so Bosch are kindly supplying a brand new 625 battery to go in here as well. So it's going to be super fresh. So this is going to be auctioned. All of the proceeds are going to go to World Bicycle Relief. World Bicycle Relief is a global charity and it's got a really simple goal, and that is to help people in low-income regions access healthcare, work and education. And that is by providing access to a bicycle. Providing people with a bike creates opportunities not just for the person with a bike, but overcomes the challenge of distance for their families, friends and communities. Having a bike rather than travelling on foot reduces student absenteeism by 28%. It also allows health workers to visit 88% more patients at home and boosts farmer incomes by 23%. So the way that World Bicycle do this is they partner up with communities to deliver specially designed and locally assembled rugged bikes, and these are called Buffalo bikes. They're designed to serve the needs of people who travel long distances over rugged terrain with heavy cargo. Your donations can give people the gift of mobility and can actually change lives by giving access to a bicycle. Now £20 provides a wheel set, £50 provides a toolkit for a mechanic, and £120 buys a bicycle. £120 buys an entire Buffalo bicycle. If you want to, put a bid on the bike and 100% of the proceeds from the sale of this bike, every single penny, and every penny donated through this fundraiser on YouTube is going to be sent directly to World Bicycle Relief.